Jake Martinez stared at the alien ship through the window of the frontier's edge. The ship looked like a giant crystal floating in space. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. He had never seen anything like it before. "Martinez, you ready for this?" Captain Lisa Adams walked up behind him. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear she was nervous too. "Yes, ma'am," Jake said. He was a lieutenant in the human space fleet. He had trained for first contact with aliens, but he never thought it would really happen. Now, here he was, about to meet beings from another world. The alien ship had appeared near Earth 3 days ago. At first, everyone thought they were going to attack, but then the aliens sent a message. They wanted to talk. They wanted to learn about humans. Dr. Amy Clark, the ship's science officer, had worked day and night to understand their language. The aliens called themselves Etherians. They seemed peaceful. They wanted to do what they called a cultural exchange. "The alien ambassador is coming aboard in 1 hour," Captain Adams told Jake. "You will be the human assigned to work with one of their scientists. Think you can handle it?" Jake nodded. "I'll do my best, Captain." 1 hour later, Jake stood in the main bay with the rest of the crew. The air seemed to shimmer, and then the aliens appeared. Jake's mouth fell open. They looked like people made of living crystal. Light moved through their bodies like water. They were tall and thin, and they seemed to glow from inside. The alien in front stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music in Jake's head. "I am Ambassador Zara Keth," she said. "We are happy to meet the humans of Earth." Captain Adams stepped forward. "Welcome to our ship. We are honored to have you here." The ambassador looked around at all the humans. Her crystal face showed no expression that Jake could understand. "We have much to learn from each other. This is Velnira. She will study your human ways." A smaller Etherian moved forward. She looked younger than the others. Her crystal body was a lighter blue color, and she seemed excited. Jake could somehow feel her excitement even though he didn't understand how. "Lieutenant Martinez will be her human guide," Captain Adams said. Velnira turned to look at Jake. Her crystal eyes were like looking into deep water. "Jake Martinez," she said, and hearing his name in her musical voice made him feel strange. "I want to learn everything about humans." Jake smiled and held out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Velnira." She looked at his hand with confusion. Then she reached out and touched it with her own crystal fingers. Her touch was warm and made Jake's skin tingle. "This is how humans greet?" she asked. "One way, yes," Jake said. "We shake hands to show we are friendly." Velnira seemed fascinated by this. She kept holding his hand and studying it. Jake felt his cheeks get red. The other crew members were watching, and some were trying not to laugh. "I will show you around the ship," Jake said, pulling his hand back gently. For the next few hours, Jake took Velnira around the frontier's edge. She asked questions about everything. Why did humans need chairs when they could float? Why did they eat solid food instead of absorbing energy? Why did they wear coverings on their bodies? That last question made Jake uncomfortable. "We call them clothes," he explained. "Humans wear clothes for protection and privacy." "Privacy?" Velnira asked. The word seemed to confuse her completely. "It means keeping some things to yourself, not sharing everything with everyone," Jake tried to explain. Velnira tilted her crystal head. "Why would you not share? Sharing is good." Jake realized this was going to be harder than he thought. That evening, Jake showed Velnira to the guest quarters they had prepared for her. "This is where you can rest," he said. She looked around the room. "It is small and closed." "Why do you put walls around everything?" "For privacy," Jake said again. "Each person has their own space." Velnira still looked confused, but she nodded. Jake said goodnight and went to his own room. He was tired and wanted to sleep. Jake had just taken off his uniform shirt when the wall of his room began to shimmer. Velnira's crystal form appeared, walking right through the solid metal wall. She was not fully solid. Jake could see through her, but he could see her crystal body clearly. "Jake Martinez," she said happily. "I want to ask more questions about human behavior." Jake grabbed his shirt and held it in front of his chest. Velnira, you can't just come into my room. She looked surprised. Why not? I want to learn. Because this is my private space and I'm not dressed. Dressed? She looked at the shirt in his hands. You mean the body coverings? Why do you need them now? Jake's face turned red. Because humans need privacy. We don't show our bodies to others. Velnira studied him with those deep crystal eyes. Your body is the same as other humans. Why hide it? Jake didn't know how to explain. On her world, everyone probably shared everything, but humans were different. Please, Jake said. Can you come back later, when I'm dressed? Velnira seemed confused, but she nodded. I will return. She faded away through the wall. Jake put his shirt back on and sat on his bed. This was going to be a very long mission. How could he teach her about human ways when she didn't understand the most basic things about privacy? 20 minutes later, his wall shimmered again. Velnira appeared, this time fully solid. She had learned to make her body more real. Is this better? She asked. Jake looked at her crystal form. She was still see-through in places, and the light moving through her body created patterns that were both beautiful and distracting. Velnira, the problem isn't how solid you are. The problem is that you're in my private room without permission. She tilted her head. Permission? Jake rubbed his forehead. This was going to take a lot of patience. Let me explain human customs. He started. But as he spoke, he had a feeling this was just the beginning of his problems with the curious alien scientist who didn't understand the meaning of privacy. Jake woke up the next morning to find Velnira sitting in his chair watching him sleep. Her crystal body was half solid, glowing softly in the dark room. Good morning, Jake Martinez, she said cheerfully. I have been observing your sleep patterns. Very interesting. Jake sat up quickly, pulling his blanket up to his chest. Velnira, how long have you been here? 3 hours and 27 minutes, she replied. You make small sounds when you dream, and you move much during sleep. Etherians do not move when we rest. Jake's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. You can't watch people sleep. That's very private. There is that word again, Velnira said. I still do not understand this private concept. Jake got out of bed, making sure to keep the blanket around him. Please leave so I can get dressed. Why must I leave? I want to see how humans prepare for the day. Because getting dressed is private, Jake said, his voice getting louder. Velnira looked hurt. Her crystal body flickered. Are you angry with me, Jake Martinez? Jake saw the confusion and sadness in her crystal eyes. He took a deep breath. I'm not angry with you personally, but you're doing things that make humans very uncomfortable. I do not understand, she said quietly. After Velnira finally left, Jake went to find Dr. Amy Clark. He found her in the science lab, studying data about the Etherians. Dr. Clark, I need help, Jake said. Velnira doesn't understand human privacy at all. She comes into my room without permission. She watches me sleep. She doesn't understand why humans wear clothes. Dr. Amy looked up from her work. I've been studying their language and culture. The problem is bigger than you think, Jake. What do you mean? The Etherians don't have words for privacy, personal space, or individual ownership. Their language doesn't have these concepts because their society doesn't have them. Jake sat down heavily. So how can I explain something to her that doesn't exist in her world? That's the problem, Dr. Amy said. It's like trying to explain the color blue to someone who was born blind. They have no reference point. But I have to try something. She's driving me crazy. Dr. Amy pulled up a file on her computer. I've been working with the Universal Translator. Look at this. She showed Jake a list of words. Privacy, personal, individual, alone, secret, intimate. Next to each word was a symbol that meant no translation available. The translator can't even convert these ideas into their language, Dr. Amy explained. To them, sharing everything is normal. They share thoughts, spaces, even emotions. So what can we do? I'm working on it. But Jake, you need to understand something. When Velnira enters your room, she's not trying to be rude. In her culture, staying close to someone shows care and friendship. Jake rubbed his temples. That doesn't make it easier to deal with. That afternoon, Jake tried a different approach. He took Velnira to the ship's workshop and found some metal sheets. "Help me understand," he said. "On your world, do you have homes? Places where you live?" "We live everywhere," Velnira replied. "Space is for sharing." Jake started building a small box from the metal sheets. "Humans are different. We need our own spaces, like this box." He put a small toy soldier inside the box and closed it. "This soldier has privacy inside the box. No one can see him or bother him." Velnira studied the box. Then, to Jake's surprise, she reached through the metal wall and pulled out the soldier. "But walls cannot stop us," she said. "Why make walls if they do not work?" Jake stared at her. He had forgotten that Etherians could walk through solid matter. "Just because you can go through walls doesn't mean you should." "Why not?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Because..." Jake struggled to find words. "Because the soldier doesn't want to be bothered. He wants to be alone." "Alone is sad," Velnira said. "Why would anyone want to be sad?" Jake realized he was getting nowhere. Every human concept he tried to explain seemed wrong or harmful to her. That evening, Jake was in the mess hall eating dinner with Sergeant Mike Torres and pilot Jenny White. "How's your alien girlfriend doing?" Mike joked. "She's not my girlfriend," Jake said quickly, "and she's driving me insane. She doesn't understand boundaries at all." "What kind of boundaries?" Jenny asked. Jake told them about Velnira watching him sleep and walking through his walls. Mike laughed so hard he almost choked on his food. "It's not funny," Jake protested. "I can't get any privacy. She follows me everywhere." "Maybe that's how her people show they like you," Jenny suggested. "That's what Dr. Clark said, but I don't know how much more I can take." Just then, Velnira materialized next to Jake's table. The other diners jumped in surprise, but they were getting used to aliens appearing suddenly. "Jake Martinez, I have been thinking about your box demonstration," she said. "I want to try an experiment." "What kind of experiment?" Jake asked nervously. "I want to experience this privacy you speak of. Will you help me?" Jake looked at Mike and Jenny, who were trying not to smile. "Okay, what do you want to do?" "I want to go to a small space and be alone, to understand why humans need this." Jake took her to one of the small storage rooms. It was barely big enough for one person. "Stay in here for 10 minutes, Jake said. "Don't phase through the walls, just stay inside." "And then I will understand privacy?" she asked. "Maybe," Jake said. He closed the door and locked it. 5 minutes. Later, Velnira's crystal form pushed through the door, her eyes wide with panic. "Jake Martinez," she called out. "That was terrible. I felt so alone and frightened." Other crew members in the hallway turned to stare. Velnira's crystal body was flickering rapidly, showing her distress. "It was only 5 minutes," Jake said. "It felt like forever. I could not sense anyone else nearby. I could not share thoughts or feelings. It was like being dead." Jake finally began to understand. For Etherians, being alone wasn't just uncomfortable, it was terrifying. They were used to constant connection with others. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I didn't know it would upset you so much." Velnira's flickering slowed down. "Now I understand why you do not want to be alone. But I do not understand why you want me to leave you alone," Jake sighed. This was more complicated than he had thought. How could he explain that humans sometimes needed solitude when solitude was Velnira's worst nightmare? "Velnira, humans are different from Etherians. Sometimes we need to be alone, to think or rest. It doesn't mean we don't like you." She studied his face carefully. "So when you ask me to leave, you are not rejecting me?" "No, I'm not rejecting you. I just need some time to myself sometimes." Velnira nodded slowly, but Jake could see she still didn't really understand. The cultural gap between their species seemed impossibly wide. "I will try to learn," she said, "but it is very difficult for me." That night, Jake lay in bed waiting. Sure enough, at midnight his wall began to shimmer. But this time only Velnira's head appeared through the wall. "Jake Martinez, Are you awake? Jake sat up. Velnira, what are you doing? I am trying to respect your privacy. I am only putting my head through the wall, not my whole body. Jake didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She was trying, but she still didn't get it. This was going to be a very long cultural exchange. Jake was getting used to Velnira's strange behavior. It had been a week since the Etherians arrived. She still came into his room at odd hours, but now she tried to be respectful by only putting part of her body through the walls. He was reading. In his quarters when the ship's alarm began blaring, red lights flashed everywhere. All crew to battle stations. Captain Adams's voice echoed through the ship. We have hostile ships approaching. Jake jumped up and grabbed his uniform jacket. Through his small window he could see 3 dark ships approaching fast. They didn't look like the beautiful crystal ship of the Etherians. Velnira's head appeared through his wall, her crystal eyes wide with fear. Jake Martinez, what is happening? Enemy ships, Jake said, running toward the door. Stay in the safe. Areas! But Velnira's whole body materialized and followed him. I will stay with you. Jake ran toward the bridge. The ship shook as weapons hit their shields. Sparks flew from control panels as crew members worked frantically. Report, Captain, Adams shouted. 3 Zephyrian raiders, Captain, Engineer Carlos Rodriguez called out. They're attacking both us and the Etherian ship. Jake looked out the main window. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as pirates and killers. Their dark ships were firing energy weapons at both the human and Etherian vessels. Our shields are down to 60%, pilot Jenny White reported. The Etherian ship is not fighting back, Communications Officer Rachel Morgan said. I think they're peaceful people. They don't have weapons. Jake felt Velnira move closer. To him. Her crystal body was flickering rapidly, showing her fear. Jake Martinez, my people do not know how to fight, she whispered. We have never needed to. It's okay, Jake said, trying to sound calm. We'll protect you. But things got worse quickly. The Zephyrian ships were faster and had better weapons than the Frontier's Edge. The human ship was built for exploration, not war. Shields down to 30%, Carlos shouted. Hull breach on deck 5, someone else called out. The ship shook violently. Jake was thrown to the floor. When he looked up, he saw Velnira standing over him, her crystal body now completely solid and glowing brightly. You are hurt, she said, looking at a cut on Jake's forehead. I'm fine, Jake said, getting up. But then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Main power is offline. Dr. Ben Carter's voice came over the communication system. Radiation levels rising in sections 7 through 12. Jake's heart sank. Section 8 was where his quarters were located. If radiation was leaking there, it would be deadly for humans. We need to evacuate those areas, Captain Adams ordered. But then another explosion rocked the ship. Jake was thrown against the wall hard. He felt dizzy and his vision was blurry. Around him, crew members were shouting and running. Jake Martinez. Velnira's voice sounded far away. Jake Martinez, answer me. Jake tried to stand but couldn't. Everything was spinning. He realized he might have a concussion from hitting the wall. The bridge shields are failing, someone shouted. Radiation breakthrough in 30 seconds. Jake knew what that meant. Deadly radiation would flood the bridge, killing everyone there. He tried to get up again but fell back down. Suddenly, Velnira grabbed him. Her crystal arms were strong and she lifted him easily. Where can we go? She asked urgently. Jake's head was clearing a little. My quarter, Section 8, but there's radiation there. I will protect you, Velnira said. Before Jake could protest, she carried him quickly through the corridors. The ship was shaking constantly now as the Zephyrian weapons hit them. Other crew members were running everywhere trying to save the ship. When they reached Jake's quarters, Velnira pushed through the wall, carrying Jake with her. Inside, Jake's radiation detector was beeping wildly. The levels were deadly for humans. Velnira, we can't stay here, Jake said. The radiation will kill me. No, she said firmly, it will not. Velnira set Jake down and then did something amazing. Her crystal body began to expand and change shape. She grew larger and brighter, until she surrounded Jake completely. She had made herself into a crystal shell around him. What are you doing? Jake asked. Protecting you. Her voice came from all around him. Etherian crystal blocks harmful radiation. You are safe inside me. Jake looked around in wonder. He was inside Velnira's body, surrounded by living crystal. Her light pulsed gently around him. The radiation detector stopped beeping. But what about you? Jake asked. Doesn't this hurt you? I am fine, she said. But I must stay solid to protect you. I cannot phase through walls while doing this. They stayed like that as the battle continued outside. Jake could hear explosions and shouting, but inside Velnira's crystal protection, he felt safe. Velnira, Jake said quietly, why are you doing this for me? Because you are important to me, she replied. Her voice was soft and musical, coming from the crystal walls around him. But I've been so rude to you. I kept telling you to leave, me alone. I understand now, she said. You were not rejecting me. You were trying to teach me about human ways. I am sorry I did not understand sooner. Jake felt something he had never felt before. He was completely enclosed with no privacy at all. Velnira could see everything he did, hear every word he spoke. But instead of feeling trapped, he felt protected and cared for. I understand something, too, Jake said. When you came into my room all those times, you weren't trying to bother me. You were trying to protect me. Yes, Velnira said. In Etherian culture, we stay close to those we care about. We watch over them. I was trying to care for you the only way I knew how. Jake smiled. I wish I had understood that sooner. The battle sounds outside were getting quieter. Then Jake heard Captain Adams's voice over the communication system. All crew, the Zephyrian ships are retreating. Repeat, the enemy is retreating. Begin damage reports. Why did they leave? Jake asked. Velnira's crystal body began to pulse with different colors. I think I know. The other Etherians saw what I did to protect you. They learned from watching us. What do you mean? We shared the experience through our mental connection. Now they understand that Etherians and humans can work together. They are using their abilities to help repair your ship. Jake felt Velnira's crystal shell begin to shrink back to her normal size. Soon she was standing in front of him, looking tired but happy. Your people can help fix our ship? Jake asked. Etherian crystal can be shaped into any form, she explained. We can replace damaged parts, seal hull breaches, even enhance your systems. Jake looked around his quarters. Through his small window, he could see the Etherian ship moving closer to the frontier's edge. Beams of crystal light were extending from their ship to his, and he could see the human ship's damaged areas being repaired. Velnira, I owe you my life, Jake said. She looked confused. You do not owe me anything. I protected you because I care about you. That is what friends do. Friends, Jake repeated. The word sounded good. Yes. Are we friends now, Jake Martinez? Jake smiled and held out his hand for a handshake. But instead of just touching his hand like before, Velnira took it and held it gently. We're friends, Jake said. And I think I'm starting to understand your people better. And I understand humans better too, she said. You need privacy sometimes, but you also need protection and care. These things are not opposite, they can work together. Jake nodded. For the first time since meeting Velnira, he felt like they were finally beginning to understand each other. Outside, the two ships worked together to repair the damage from the battle. It was the beginning of something new, a partnership between two very different species who were learning to bridge the gap between their worlds. After the battle with the Zephyrians, everything changed between Jake and Velnira. She still didn't fully understand human privacy, but now Jake understood why she acted the way she did. She wasn't being rude, she was trying to protect him, but the problem wasn't solved yet. Other crew members were having similar troubles with the Etherians. Jake found engineer Carlos Rodriguez looking frustrated in the engine room. What's wrong, Carlos? Jake asked. Carlos pointed to an Etherian scientist who was standing inside the main engine, his crystal body glowing as he studied the power core. That's Kethmore, Carlos said. He wants to understand our engines, but he keeps walking through sensitive equipment. Yesterday, he materialized inside the fuel tank. I thought we were going to have an explosion. Jake watched Kethmore move through the engine parts like they were made of air. Has he damaged anything? Not yet, but it's making me nervous. What if he accidentally triggers something? Jake had an idea. What if we found a way to let him study the engine safely, without him having to walk through everything? How? Carlos asked. Jake thought about how Velnira had protected him during the battle. She had changed her crystal form to create a shell around him. Maybe Etherians could change their bodies in other ways too. Let me talk to Velnira, Jake said. He found her in the observation deck, looking out at space. Her crystal body was only half solid, which Jake now knew meant she was relaxed. Velnira, I need to ask you something about Etherian abilities. She turned to him, her crystal eyes bright. Yes, Jake Martinez? During the battle, you changed your body to protect me. Can all Etherians change their shape like that? Of course, she said. We can become any shape we need. Why do you ask? Jake explained about the problems other crew members were having with Etherians walking through important equipment. Ah, Velnira said. We did not know this was a problem. We are used to moving through everything freely. But what if there was a way for Etherians to study our technology without going through it? Velnira thought for a moment. Show me. Jake took her to the engine room where Carlos was still watching Kethmore nervously. Kethmore, Velnira called to her fellow Etherian. They spoke in their musical language for a few minutes. Then Kethmore nodded and began to change. His crystal body stretched and flattened until it looked like a thin sheet. Then he wrapped himself around the outside of the engine, like a crystal blanket. Amazing, Carlos breathed. He's still touching every part of the engine, but he's not going through it. Now he can study your technology without interfering with it, Velnira explained. But wait, Jake said. There's still the privacy issue. Humans need some spaces that are completely private. Velnira looked thoughtful. What if we created special areas? Places where humans can have privacy but Etherians can still feel connected. What do you mean? Come, I will show you. Velnira led Jake to an empty storage room. This room is the right size. May we use it? Jake nodded. Velnira placed her hands on the walls and began to glow brighter. Slowly, the metal walls began to change. Crystal grew over them, but it wasn't solid crystal. It looked like frosted glass. These walls will give humans visual privacy, Velnira explained. But they will let us sense that you are safe and healthy. We can feel your life energy through them without seeing what you are doing. Jake stared at the transformed room. You can sense life energy? Yes. It is how we know others are well, even when we cannot see them. This way, you have your privacy, but we do not feel the terrible loneliness of being completely cut off. Jake walked into the room and closed the door. From inside, he could see light and shapes moving outside, but no details. It felt private, but not isolated. This is perfect, Jake said, coming back out. But how long will the crystal last? It will last as long as we are here, Velnira said. When we leave, it will return to normal metal. Word spread quickly through the ship about Jake's solution. Soon, other crew members were asking for crystal privacy rooms. The Etherians were happy to help, and humans finally had spaces where they could be alone without making their alien guests feel rejected. Captain. Adams called Jake to her office the next day. Martinez, what you've accomplished here is remarkable, she said. You've found a way for two completely different species to live together comfortably. Thank you, Captain. But it was really Velnira who made it work. She helped me understand that both species have needs that seem to contradict each other, but they don't have to. The Etherian ambassador wants to speak with you, Captain Adams said. She's very impressed with your solution. Ambassador Zara Keth met with Jake in the main conference room. Her tall crystal form seemed even more impressive than before. Jake Martinez, she said in her musical voice, you have done something we thought was impossible. What's that, Ambassador? You have found a way for two species with completely opposite natures to coexist peacefully. Etherians need connection and sharing. Humans need privacy and individual space. These seemed like they could never work together. Jake thought about it. Maybe they're not really opposite. Maybe they're just different ways of caring about each other. The ambassador's crystal body pulsed with brighter colors. Explain this, thought. Etherians stay close to people they care about because you want to protect them. Humans give people space because we want to respect them. Both are ways of showing care. You see wisdom that we did not, the ambassador said. This way of thinking, this ability to find solutions between conflicting needs, it is rare in the galaxy. What do you mean? Most species we have met deal with differences through dominance. The stronger species forces the weaker one to adapt completely. But humans find a third way, a path that honors both sides. Jake hadn't thought of it that way. We just tried to be fair to everyone. That is exactly what makes humans special, Ambassador Zaraketh said. We would like to propose something to your captain, Adams. The next day, Captain Adams called Jake to the bridge. The ambassador was there, along with Velnira and several other Etherians. Martinez, the Etherians have made an interesting proposal, Captain Adams said. They want to establish a permanent research station, a place where humans and Etherians can work together long-term. That sounds great, Jake said. They want you to be the director of human operations, the captain continued, and Velnira would be your Etherian counterpart. Jake looked at Velnira, who was glowing brightly with excitement. We could study each other's technology, she said. We could learn more about how different species can work together. And we could teach others what we have learned. What do you say, Lieutenant? Captain Adams asked. Jake thought about how much he had learned from Velnira. At first, she had seemed like an annoying alien who didn't understand human ways. But now he realized she was a friend who cared about him deeply, just in a different way than he was used to. I say yes, Jake said, but I have one condition. What is that? The ambassador asked. Jake smiled. Velnira gets her own privacy room, too. She needs to learn what it's like to be human sometimes. Velnira's crystal body flickered, which Jake now knew was her way of laughing. I accept this condition, but only if you promise to visit me often. Being alone is still frightening for me. Deal, Jake said. Dr. Amy Clark stepped forward. This research station could be very important for the future. If we can figure out how to help different species understand each other, we might be able to prevent wars and conflicts throughout the galaxy. Jake nodded. He was beginning to understand that what had started as a simple problem between him and Velnira was actually something much bigger. Humans had a special talent for finding compromise and building bridges between different groups. When do we start? Jake asked. As soon as we can find the right location, Ambassador Zaraketh said. But first we must share our findings with both our peoples. This partnership between humans and Etherians will be the first of its kind. Jake looked around at all the faces, human and Etherian, watching him. A week ago, he had just been a frustrated lieutenant trying to get some privacy. Now he was going to help establish a new kind of relationship between species. I guess I better start learning more about Etherian culture, Jake said. Velnira moved closer to him. And I will keep learning about humans, though I think I understand the most important thing now. What's that? Jake asked. Friendship can exist even when people are very different. Sometimes the differences make the friendship stronger. Jake smiled. She was right. Their friendship had become stronger because of their differences, not in spite of them. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the first human Etherian research facility in the galaxy. Through the transparent walls, he could see ships from dozens of different worlds docking at the station. Jake Martinez, we have visitors from the Zentari Republic, Velnira said, appearing beside him. She had learned to announce herself before materializing, which Jake appreciated. What's their problem? Jake asked. They cannot agree with the aquatic mer people about trade routes. The Zentari need dry shipping containers. The mer people need water-filled compartments. Both species say the other is being unreasonable. Jake smiled. Sounds like our kind of challenge. Over the past 6 months, word had spread throughout the galaxy about the Human Etherian Cooperation Institute. Species that had never been able to work together were coming to Harmony Station for help. The reason was simple. Humans had a unique ability to find solutions that satisfied everyone. Other species usually handled conflicts by having winners and losers, but humans looked for ways to make everyone winners. Ambassador Chen from Earth is here too, Velnira added. She wants to observe our methods. Jake and Velnira walked to Conference Room 3, which had become famous throughout the galaxy. It was designed with both human and Etherian technology. The walls could become transparent or opaque depending on the needs of different species. The furniture could change shape to accommodate beings of various sizes and body types. Inside, Jake met with Ambassador Lisa Chen from Earth and representatives from 3 different alien species. Lieutenant Martinez, Ambassador Chen said, "Earth Command is very impressed with what you've accomplished here." "Thank you, ma'am. But it's really a team effort." The Zentari representative, a tall being with rocky skin, spoke first. "We have been trying to negotiate with the Mer people for 2 years. They demand that all trade ships be filled with water. This is impossible for us. We will die in water-filled ships." The Mer representative, a blue-skinned amphibian, responded angrily. "And your dry ships will kill us. We need water to breathe during long journeys." Jake listened carefully. This was exactly the kind of problem humans were good at solving. If we created ships that have both environments," Jake suggested. "Impossible," the Zentari said. "Water and air cannot occupy the same space." "Not in the same compartment," Jake agreed. "But what if the ship had separate sections? Dry areas for Zentari cargo and crew? Water-filled areas for Mer cargo and crew?" Velnira's crystal body pulsed with excitement. "We could help design such ships. Etherian crystal can create perfect barriers between water and air." The third, alien, a representative from the gaseous Windari people, spoke up. "What about species like us who need specific atmospheric mixtures? Would there be room for gas-filled compartments too?" Jake thought for a moment. "Why not? We could create modular ships. Each species contributes what they're good at. Centauri provide solid construction, Mer provide water systems, Windari provide atmospheric controls, and Etherians provide the crystal barriers that keep everything separate." Ambassador Chen leaned forward. "That's brilliant. Instead of each species building their own ships, they work together to build better ships than any of them could make alone." Within 2 hours, the 3 alien species had agreed to a trade partnership that would benefit all of them. Jake watched them sign the agreement with satisfaction. "How do you do it?" Ambassador Chen asked Jake privately afterward. "How do you find these solutions so quickly?" Jake thought about it. "I think it's because humans are used to dealing with differences. On Earth, we have many different cultures, languages, and ways of living. We've had to learn how to get along despite our differences." "But other species have diversity too," the ambassador pointed out. "True, but I think humans are different, in one way. We don't see differences as problems to be eliminated. We see them as resources to be used." Velnira, who had been listening quietly, added her thoughts. "Humans also have something very rare. They can understand multiple perspectives at the same time. Most species can only see from their own point of view." "What do you mean?" Ambassador Chen asked. "When the Zentari said they needed dry ships, most species would either agree or disagree," Velnira explained. But Jake immediately understood why they needed dry ships and why the Mer needed water ships. He held both needs in his mind at the same time and found a solution that honored both. Jake had never thought of it that way, but Velnira was right. During his first meeting with her, he had eventually understood both his need for privacy and her need for connection. That understanding had led to their crystal wall solution. Later that evening, Jake was in his quarters, which now had crystal walls that let Velnira sense he was safe while giving him visual privacy. She materialized through the wall, now fully, solid as she usually was when visiting him. "Jake Martinez, I have news from the Galactic Council," she said, clearly excited. "What kind of news?" "They want to offer humanity a seat on the council. They want humans to be the official mediators for interspecies conflicts. Jake sat down hard in his chair. The Galactic Council? But humans just made contact with aliens 6 months ago. That does not matter, Velnira said. What matters is what you have accomplished. In 6 months you have solved conflicts that have existed for years. Species that were on the verge of war are now trading partners. It's not just me, Jake protested. You helped. All the Etherians helped. The human crew helped. Yes, but it was human thinking that made it possible, Velnira said. The ability to see win-win solutions where others see only win-lose conflicts. Jake stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see ships from a dozen different worlds. Some were strange shapes he couldn't identify. Others looked like nothing he had ever imagined. What would this mean for humanity, Jake asked. It would mean humans become the galaxy's peacemakers, Velnira said. When species cannot agree, they would call for human mediators. Jake thought about Ambassador Chen's visit. Earth was already sending more diplomats and negotiators to learn human mediation techniques. There's something else, Velnira said quietly. The Council wants to know if humans would be interested in establishing mediation stations throughout the galaxy. Places like Harmony Station, but in different sectors. How many stations? Perhaps hundreds eventually. Each one would have human-alien teams working together to solve problems between species. Jake turned to look at Velnira. Her crystal body was glowing softly, the way it did when she was thinking about something important. What do you think, Velnira? Should humanity accept? I think, she said slowly, that this is what humans are meant to do in the galaxy. Not conquer or dominate, but help others work together. Jake nodded. It felt right. When he had first met Velnira, he had been frustrated and embarrassed by their cultural differences. But those differences had ultimately made them both stronger. There's one condition I would want, Jake said. What is that? Etherians would have to be our partners in this. Not just humans solving problems, but human Etherian teams. We work better together than either species works alone. Velnira's body pulsed with bright colors, her way of showing happiness. I was hoping you would say that. A year later, Jake received a message that made him smile. It was from Sergeant Mike Torres, who was now running a mediation station in the Outer Rim. Jake, you won't believe what happened today. We had 2 species that communicated entirely through scent, and another species that was allergic to both, their scents. Took me 3 days, but we figured out how to have them negotiate using written symbols in separate ventilated rooms. Both sides are happy with the trade agreement. I keep thinking about how this all started with you complaining about your alien roommate not understanding privacy. Look what it turned into. Jake laughed and showed the message to Velnira. They were in Jake's office at Harmony Station, which had grown into a major hub for intergalactic cooperation. Do you ever think about how strange this is? Jake asked. 6 months ago, I was just trying to get you to stop walking through my walls. Now we're helping to reshape how different species interact across the galaxy. It is not strange, Velnira said. It is what happens when people truly try to understand each other. Jake looked out his office window at the busy docking bay. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went daily, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible without human mediation. I have something to tell you, Jake said. Earth Command offered me a promotion. I could go back to Earth and help train the next generation of human mediators. Velnira's body flickered, a sign of surprise. Will you accept? Only if you come with me, Jake said. Humans need to learn about Etherian culture too. We make a good team. Velnira glowed brighter. I would like that very much. Though I should warn you, Earth probably has many closed spaces and privacy customs I still do not fully understand. Jake grinned. Don't worry. We'll figure it out together. We always do. As Jake looked out at the ships from across the galaxy, he realized that what had started as a simple misunderstanding about privacy had become something much larger. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or rulers, but as bridge builders and peacemakers. And it had all begun with an alien who didn't understand privacy and a human who